Hey guys, Trevor here. Welcome back to episode 3 of r/Prorevenge. I got 3 stories for you today. The first is about a bully teacher who likes to kick students' belongings. The second is about a guy who purposely lets himself get run over to get his revenge. And the third story is about a couple who's overly obnoxious on a plane, so our reader decides to curse their baby to get revenge. And of course, like usual, we got our bonus subreddit at the end of the video, so make sure you stick around and check it out. Alright, see you in a minute. Bully teacher likes to kick your belongings. This isn't my story. The story belongs to a friend. We'll call him Alan, because that's not his name. Alan is very laid back, largish guy who seems very gentle. But in high school, he had seething anger issues, especially with bullies. And this story was a culmination of those. Alan had a math teacher. Call him Barry, because he was about that age. Barry liked to bully his students in ways that were scary, but not actually violent. And being a math teacher, he was more predictable than creative. Barry owned his classroom and kept discipline by humiliating anyone who challenged him. He liked to stride along aisles between the students' desk chairs, and he insisted on free space to stride in. When a student left belongings in the aisle, Barry would call the class attention, wind up big, and kick the belongings extravagantly to the other end of the aisle and beyond, leaving the embarrassed student to clean up the chaos while everyone in the class waited to resume. Barry would smirk and say, "Now let's see things in the aisle again." Not that there was anywhere else to put things. One day in November, Barry kicked a young lady's entire gym bag across the classroom, and her gym clothes scattered like the wind. Her underlings landed on other students. She was mortified. Barry smirked, and Alan seethed. It had happened to Alan before, no big deal, but he was unwilling to let it go when it came to embarrassing a young lady. Alan began plotting his eventual revenge. In art class, Alan had been assigned a winter term sculpture project that could use any found material. He decided to use nuts and bolts for December, but he listened carefully and knew that there would be a similar, higher marked project in the spring. He bided his time. Being a big guy, Alan decided his spring project would use bricks. Come January, he okayed the choice of material with the art teacher. Then he sketched out his sculpture, showed where he'd obtained the material, how and where the bricks would be used, how they'd be held together, and what the final project would look like. All material was to be brought into the art class and left there in their storage over the course of the term while it was being worked with. Okayed that with the art teacher too. All this took 4 more weeks, but that was just fine. So in February, Alan brings 24 bricks to school, perhaps coincidentally on the day that art class immediately followed math class. And of course, what would be more convenient than to carry them all but in a gym bag? There was no way for Alan to leave it in his locker between classes, since there wasn't time to get from math to his locker, then to art. So he absolutely had to bring the bag to math class. Somehow, that gym bag was carelessly left projecting a foot or so in between the aisles between the desk chairs. Math teacher Barry saw the bag, strode up the aisle, grinned, took a huge windup, and the paramedics took Barry to the hospital, spitting and gasping with a shattered foot. Of course, Alan expected a serious investigation afterwards, but he had plotted everything with so much legitimacy, so much plausible deniability, that nobody could ever show deliberate intent. Most teachers, who knew what an a-hole Barry was, suspected Alan of engineering the whole thing, but no one could prove a thing. Alan looked contrite and kept his head down. TLDR, predictable bully teacher likes to kick gym bags, finds bags of bricks less accommodating. Maybe it's just me, but even if they knew it was Alan, why would he get in trouble in the first place? Barry is deliberately going and damaging other people's property, so shouldn't he be the one to face repercussions if anyone? Guy speeds out of his driveway every day without looking. I think I may have screwed him up mentally forever. This story happened a couple years ago, and may be the worst thing I ever did. I was 17, and being Dutch, I rode my bike everywhere. I lived pretty close to my grandparents, and would walk past their house daily. Their house was on a corner of a Y-shaped intersection, and there was a guy who lived on the same intersection who was the worst driver I'd ever met. He would just not look when driving out of his garage and speed onto the road. He had nearly hit me twice already, and every time he just cursed at me to get out of the way. Now you may not believe me when I say this, but I am not a vengeful person. But something about this just annoyed me so much. My grandma also loves to ride her bike around town to do groceries, and I knew I had to do something before my grandma got hit. I asked my grandma about the man, and she told me what I already knew. The guy was an a-hole, and everyone did everything wrong except for him. I told my grandma what I was planning, and if she would help me. She wholeheartedly agreed, and together we made a plan to teach him a lesson he would never forget. I decided to hang out around this guy's house for a couple weeks to take note of when he left for work and how fast he was going. I worked everything out to the smallest details, no room for error in this one. I started practicing my falls again and looked up some tutorials to prepare myself for the performance of a lifetime. One sunny Monday morning, I get up and start stretching and warming up my muscles. Today is the day. I grab my bike and drive it around the corner of the guy's garage. I mentally prepare myself and start my bloody nose with ease, making sure to get it nice and bloody in the process. Then I hear it. The guy's garage door opens. Now I have 3.7 seconds before he would start racing out of his garage. Like I said, every detail, no room for error. I start driving my bike as fast as I could and get ready for the impact. And let me tell you, it was beautiful. I was no longer sitting in my seat, and I had left my hand already off my handlebar to help with the impact of the car. I rolled over the hood of the windshield of his car and landed in a nice rolling motion as I thought to myself all those years ago. I ended up hitting the ground on the passenger side of the car. All in all, the whole accident took less than a second, but I still remember as if it happened in slow motion. The guy was freaking out as if he just killed a man, and if you were looking at the amount of blood on his car, it wasn't that much, but on a white car, every drop stands out. You would agree. As I laid there next to his car, he came screaming out asking if I was okay. Of course, I pretended I wasn't, and took my sweet ass time trying to get up. It was at this point that my grandma came running out of her house and screaming on cue, "My baby, you hit my grandson!" The guy didn't know what to do. He was so full of shock that I thought he may pass out. I'll give him credit, he kept his cool, and he knew he was in the wrong. He called me an ambulance and stayed by my side. When they arrived, they checked me out. I was fine, a couple bruises and maybe a small scratch on my knee from hitting the pavement. They bandaged me up and left. My grandma brought me to her car and brought me home. A couple days later, I ride my bike past the guy's house again and notice a piece of paper on the car's window. For sale, call, phone number. I asked my grandma what happened, and a word on the street is the accident left him traumatized. Now he refuses to drive anymore, taking public transit everywhere and selling his car. My grandma is happy that she can ride her bike now without having to worry, and I'm happy that I don't have to worry for her life. We talk about it afterwards, and both of us agree that although what we did was a horrible thing to do to someone, it had to be done before someone would actually get hurt, and we don't want to feel remorse about it. TLDR, after being almost hit twice by a reckless driver and fearing for my grandma's life, I decided to turn on full stuntman and mentally scar a 45-year-old, making him cause an accident that left him refusing to drive and selling his car. This is most definitely one of those more morally gray stories where you see why they did it and you agree that it was probably the better thing to do, but you can't 100% stand behind what they did. Although it's probably good that he's off the road now and no one's gonna get hurt. Monster annoys me on a plane, but I get back. So this happened to me a few years ago, and I just wanted to share it here, and it's a long one. Senior year of high school, I was taking a plane to visit my grandma. The flight went from Baltimore to Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh to Vegas, then Vegas to Boise. The flight from Baltimore was almost empty, and I was Southwest, so I could choose my own seat, and I was on the same plane until Vegas. I selected the last row of the plane by the window, put my buds in, and took a nap until Pittsburgh. When the plane landed, I went to the bathroom while people were getting onto the plane. To save my spot, I left my backpack in my seat and put my jacket on the seat and left. When I got back, I noticed this pregnant lady sitting in my seat and her husband sitting in the aisle seat with my jacket thrown on the ground in the aisle, and my backpack underneath with a laptop in it. Kind of annoyed, I pointed out that I was previously sitting in the window seat and wanted to know if I could have my seat back. "Can't you see I'm pregnant and need this seat?" she said aggressively. Then I looked at the husband and asked if he could please scoot over next to his wife. This guy looked at me in the eye and said, "Sorry, but we're allowed to choose our own seat, and I choose the aisle seat." Being a high school senior, I wasn't that big of a guy, but I still was not happy being seated in the center seat. Realizing that I was a losing argument and I wasn't going to get any leverage over this lady, I decided to grit my teeth and bear it. I collected all my stuff and moved to the middle seat. The second I sat down, the lady said, "You can't have your backpack in your seat. You're going to have to find a place to put it." "I'm just going to put it under my seat," I responded. "Well, where am I supposed to put my feet then?" she responds. "I don't know. Not under my effing seat." Growing up, I swore more than most people and only really watch what I say when I'm at school. Suddenly, I feel someone grab my collar. The husband pulled me inches away from his face and said, "Don't use that language to my wife or the baby. You will say you're sorry." I was shocked. Not only was this guy grabbing me in public, but at the time I was only 17 and still considered a minor. But not wanting to make a big deal out of this, I give the most half-assed "I'm sorry" to the woman and put my earbuds back in as the flight was getting ready to take off. While texting, the lady kept trying to get my attention by yelling in my ear and snapping her fingers inches in front of my face, before she finally pulled my earbuds out. "You need to turn your electronics off during takeoff," she said. Now, my dad was a pilot for 30 years, and he confirmed that electronics don't interfere with communications. It's mostly a formality so people pay attention to the emergency instructions. So I ignored her, since we're literally less than a minute from taking off. In a rage, she spams the flight attendant button so that one comes. We also had to hold off takeoff until this issue was resolved. The flight attendant runs over and asks what's wrong, expecting an emergency. "He won't turn off the electronics before flight. He's trying to kill us," she exclaims. Realizing everyone is staring at us when the flight attendant asked me to turn off, I oblige. After I had turned it off, she started lecturing me about how she was right and I was wrong, rubbing about how the flight attendant proved her right. So the flight is in the air, and when the intercom tells us we can use our electronics, I put my earbuds back in and crank it. About 5 minutes into the flight, I feel an aggravated tapping on my shoulder when I turn to look at the woman. "You need to turn that down. It's bad for the baby," she says. While I was listening to music louder than normal, it still wasn't a point that an unborn baby would be able to hear it and understand it. Shocked, I respond with, "No." But the second she reached for the flight attendant button, I said I would. I did that tick thing where you turn the volume down 2 times, and then up once so that it looks like you turn the volume down 3 times. "Better?" I asked. "More," she responded, and I went down 1 more. And before I could put my earbuds in, she said, "It's proper etiquette to talk to people sitting next to you." I just ignored her. I sit back and try to close my eyes, and amazingly this works. I fall asleep for almost an hour. It was a 5-hour flight. When I was woken up to this woman, her foot on my backpack, with my laptop in it. So I adjust my foot so it would be uncomfortable for her to continue with her feet the way they were. She immediately stood up, and I thought she was going to yell given her ability to overreact. But it turns out she was just getting up to go to the bathroom. She gets past me and her husband when a brilliant idea pops into my head. The second she steps into the bathroom, I get ready to move over my stuff to the window. As I grab my backpack and shift my momentum over, I feel a hand grab me. I did not take into account the husband. "You're not taking my wife's seat," he said. "Sir, I have to warn you that you're grabbing a minor, and if I feel like at any second I could cry that you're attacking me, or you made sexual advances on me." I respond as he lets go, and I move over to the seat I had before. When she gets back, she is furious, demanding that I move seats now, to the point that the flight attendant comes back over to see what's going on, and this time she sides with me. When she asks her husband to make me move, I look him dead in the eyes, and he goes back to reading his book, and she sits in the middle seat, pissed as hell. Thankfully, I moved seats because she was up and down in her seat, having to use the bathroom every 15 minutes, and that was pretty much the rest of the flight. except how she intercepted my bag of pretzels when the drink cart came. I respond by closing the shade to the window as we started to land at Las Vegas airport. Once off the plane, I went to Burger King to get some drinks and food. Then I got to my next gate, and to find the last seat, I scarfed down my fries and burger, walked to the aisle, literally 10 feet from my seat, to throw away the garbage. When I turn back to my seat, I see the same lady sitting in the seat I had my bag in. She had moved it to the floor right in front of her. Then she shot me this smug-ass grin thinking she had won. Somewhat defeated by losing 2 seats to this lady, losing sleep, and my patience, it was time for action. I walked over to gather my things, and as I got to her, I looked her dead in the eyes, raised my right hand, finger spread, hoved it right over her stomach, looked down at my hand, then back to her eyes. "I just cursed your baby," I said straight-faced, turned around 180 degrees and walked the hall, sitting down on the floor, staring at her intensely. Now, I don't believe in curses, nor do I believe I have the ability to place a curse, but this lady believed it. Her face was left expressionless, and she just started weeping to herself as I sat and watched. When her husband came over to see what was wrong, she told him. He instantly stormed over to me and knocked the drink out of my hand, grabbed me by the collar, and got right in my face. "Listen, you little shunt." He got out before security guards grabbed the man and detained him. The FAA don't mess around with who they hire. One guard asked me why this guy was so angry, and I said his wife had taken my seat, and I had made a comment under my breath, and he got upset with me. The officer asked for my name and identification, and saw that I was a minor. He asked if I wanted to press charges on him, and I told him yes, but I didn't want to miss my flight. He understood that and let me go, then informed Southwest Airlines attendant to please keep track of me in case we needed more information. This meant that I got to get on early, and I chose the first seat I could, aisle seat, to see if the lady would get on the plane. Since she was sitting in the same gate as my flight, she never got on the plane, and it takes off. Halfway through the flight attendant asked me if I put a curse on the baby, and I responded with, "I don't know, magic." 20 minutes later, the flight attendant told me that unfortunately I wouldn't be able to press charges on them due to being a minor, but they missed their flight, and they'd have to buy a new ticket to their destination with another airline. With 5 words, I cost this horrible woman and her abusive husband around $500. Sure, costing them $500 is pretty good, but see, the real revenge here is the fact that every time something happens to their baby, they're always going to think, well, what if it was that kid on the plane who cursed our child all those years ago? That's going to really stick with them for the rest of their life. Alright guys, that's going to do it for r/Prorevenge. I hope you enjoyed it. Now we're going to go ahead and switch gears and go right into the bonus video, which today is going to be r/Choosing Beggars. Enjoy! Looking for DJ with references. Compensation $50 for 5 hours. I need a DJ for my wedding on March 15th. Must have your own equipment. I need references, other than relatives, to attest to your punctuality and professionalism. This is a 5-hour job. You will receive $50 for your services and a free meal. Email only, please. All inquiries looked into. My fiance and I are getting married soon, so I can say for certain that $50 for 5 hours is garbage. You're looking for $10 an hour with a DJ who has references? Good luck with that. That's all I can say is good luck with that. Great opportunity to squire for a professional pro. Briefly speaking, I am 175 pounds of twisted steel and sex appeal with an 8-pack, rock hard glutes, and stellar physique, and intellectual figures. If you make the final interview round, I will provide you with my weightlifting stats. As squire, your responsibility will include, but not limited to, 1. Filming and photography me before, during, and immediately after workout. Film school background is a plus. Prefer from a top 20 film school. 2. Spotting me during workouts. Prior lifting experience required. 3. Defending my workout space. 4. Scouting out new talent. You know what I mean. 5. Responding to boy, squire, and any other name I see fit. Pay. Your pay will not be monetary, of course. What you will gain from this position is more valuable than money. You will be entitled to use the workouts you see me perform and ask for advice once a week. Other benefits may include able to be seen with me at local fitness legend, girls I'm not interested in, and other valuable things money cannot buy. Next steps. I will be reviewing some resumes until 3/14/16. I'm curious how this ended up. I will contact you if I deem you worthy of a final interview. If I do not contact you, it means you kind of suck. Sorry, maybe in the next lifetime. First of all, I'm really hoping this is just satire. But if it's not, then I would love to hear some guy say, "Squire, defend thine bench press," in the middle of a workout. That would make my day. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm sorry it's a little bit longer than usual, but there were some really good stories that I had to make sure to read, so I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time. Peace out.